What's up, gang? I'm back with another breakdown of an original Psytrance track in the style of Astrix. Since you guys enjoyed my other video where I was breaking down another Psytrance track of mine, I thought I'm gonna do this one with minimal overthinking and try to put myself in the same mindset that I was in when I was producing this track and try to give you as much insight as possible as to how I achieved this sound and this production. For you to get the best idea of what we're going to be breaking down today, I'm going to play the track in its entirety from start to finish, and then we will take it bit by bit, section by section.
So when you are breathing out, you get the sensation that your breath is falling out. Dropping out. The same sort of feeling you have as if you were settling down into an extremely comfortable bed. Just get as heavy as possible and let yourself go. Don't hurry anything. Don't worry about the future. Just be entirely content to be aware of what is.
Okay, if you decided to skip forward, I respect that, but I have to mention that in order for me to break down this project without noises and crackles, I will have to turn off all my mastering chain, all my clippers and stuff that I've done on the buses. Otherwise, we will run into problems. So if you do want to hear the final mastered version of the track, go back to the previous section. Okay, let's start from the intro. Once again, I always start my ideas and put myself in the zone for coming up with the original melody idea or chord structure when I'm doing psytrance tracks by finding a drone that makes me feel good in that moment. I've done the same thing again in this project too. Let's listen to the drones. It's giving that mysterious, tribal, traditional psytrance vibes. And there is another drone that sounds like this. It has more treble. Again, same kind of style of sound, mysterious, traditional, and tribal. At least to my ear, that's the kind of vibes that it gave me in the moment. Combining these two together, you get a very rich, full sound that covers almost the entirety of frequency spectrum and stereo field. But I also wanted a very deep sub, so I have a layer of sub, which I believe is from Zebra. Yes, it's another drone designed by Hans Zimmer for the Dark Knight movie, but it sounds like this on the one note that I'm holding, which is an A note. The next sound I actually added when I was producing the track was this piano chords, but I'm gonna show you the ARP that comes before it. Again, it's just holding the A note, and the ARP is playing for itself because it was designed through the sequencer inside Zebra. A simple reverse riser will take us to the next section. Let's hear that. Pay attention to the piano in this section. The piano sets the chord structure and the vibe for the build-up and intro, but it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the drop itself. So we have 55 seconds of intro that you don't necessarily know what's gonna come afterwards. You don't know if it's gonna be a psytrance track, it's gonna be a techno track, or what. But it has a mysterious vibe, it has a kind of tribal vibe for me. By the way, I wrote the arrangement parts up top so you can follow along. Moving on to the first build-up, the structure of the whole thing changes now. The drones are gone, they will be replaced by an Atmos that I always use in my psytrance tracks, actually in most of my tracks. I love this Lion's Den Cashmere atmosphere. Sounds like this. And I actually did keep the high drone but made it quieter. In addition, I'm fading in filtered kicks and a simple filtered bass line. Here's a trick that you might not know about FL Studio's playlists, and it's super useful for these scenarios where I'm trying to break down something and soloing stuff. So I have a bunch of automation for volumes and filters and stuff in my project. I'm gonna turn all of them on, hold Shift key and left click. You will see this lock come in. So now, no matter what I solo in the entire project, my automations always stay on, and this way you save yourself some time by turning on each automation for that section. So here's a little outside of the context tip you might not know about. As I was saying, we have filtered kick and filtered bass fading in under the drones so far. We have another ARP, but this one is, I believe, made in Nexus. Yes. So it was an arpeggiator preset, but I actually came into the arpeggiator and I drew in the notes that I wanted it to play. And it repeats over and over again. We have another ARP that's fading in that sounds like this with the other stuff under it. This one's turning left to right. So that's pretty much the rhythmic and melodic aspect of our build-up, but I wanted to have a meaning, a context as well, which I decided to use Alan Watts' vocals, which I believe was used in a couple Astrix tracks and many more Psytrance and techno tracks. But I did try to pick the sections from his speech that not many people used, or at least I didn't hear in many other tracks. So let's put the vocals in as well and move forward.
So when you are breathing out, you get the sensation that your breath is falling out. Dropping out. The same sort of feeling you have as if you were settling down into an extremely comfortable bed.
So apart from the meaning side of things, which is the vocals, rhythmic side of things, which is the bass and the filtered kick, and the melodic side of things, we have effects to set the tone, set the vibe again, and move us forward. Let's hear some of that as well. We've got that, and in midsection we've got this. Okay, so it's worth mentioning that I don't design every sound that I use in my productions. Some of these effects I've designed myself in Serum, some of them I found and I tweaked, some of them I used straight out of the pack that I downloaded or bought. The same with drones and sometimes the bass shots. So don't feel bad for using stuff that are out there for you to use them. If people are building packs and selling them out there, that's for use, that's not for decoration or collection. Just don't make your entire thing based on loops. The moment that we hear this phrase,
as if you were settling down into an extremely comfortable bed.
This is an example of a sound that I designed, and I wish I still had the plugin. I'm sure I designed this in Serum. So you can see that it's reversed first and then it goes back to the original. But I try to time it and give that sense of, you know, falling into the bed, if that. The combination of this synth, a bunch of effects, reversers and downers, and a couple more phrases from Alan Watts prepares us for a heavy-ass drop to come up.
And you just get as heavy as possible and let yourself go.
This drum fill I use from a pack. Now moving on to the first drop. When the drop comes in for the first time, it's just the bass line, the kick, and a couple synth fills at the start. I haven't brought in the melody yet. So we've got a kick and the bass. A lot of things I had to consolidate in the moment, and I had to delete the plugins. Some of the plugins are still here in the project. The heavy ones I had to consolidate and delete the plugin because I like to mix and master inside the project as I go. The bass line is not the traditional triplet, or the straight. It's instead a bouncy one in between the kicks. This is another sound that I designed in Serum myself. And then we've got a couple feels that I believe I found. Now we've got the structure, we're gonna move a bit faster. After 8 bars, we bring in the snare. and we also bring some vocal chops. Let's go through the vocal chops alone. So these guys have nothing to do with the response. These were part of one vocal sample. I chopped them into these short stabs, and I also automated the panning to go left and right. Boom, boom, boom. So left, center, right, and then coming back. And this is another sample that I picked a short bit from it. And that gives us the vocal chop rhythm. Up top we have the snare, and this is how they sound like together quickly. We got another little fill. And we've got a stab, which is, I believe, a cashmere stab. It is. Now exactly on the 2-minute mark, halfway into the drop, we bring in our first melody and hi-hat rhythm. Let's break down our melody first. I can see the MIDI here, so we're gonna listen to that. The sound is picked from Nexus. It's 2 layers of sounds. One is called Breeze, and the other is called Chronic. Melodically, nothing complicated, but we're just relying on our bounce and relying on the feel that it gives you with the bounce. So maybe the melody itself on its own doesn't have any excitement, but when it comes on top of that big rhythm and bounce, you get this. And from this section on, I'm introducing another sequence synth that sounds like this. For some reason, the filter is not opening up, but it's a sound from Anna 2 called Face Trigger. And we try to filter out the main melody towards the end and filter this in to move into the first breakdown, a little break from our heavy bounce. In the breakdown, we bring in our filtered kick, we keep the hi-hat in, we bring back our simple straight bass line from the build-up, if you remember, a sub drop, and a couple reverses and downers, which gives us our chill moment for a few seconds before we go back into the vocal chops again. This time we have an extra screech sound to make it different from the previous section. It's the sound from Rumble by Skrillex and Fred again, designed by Sam Smyers. He's got great packs, by the way. Check him out. We played that for another 8 bars, a couple different synth feels, and that will bring us to a section that we haven't heard before with a completely different melody. If you're finding this video valuable and you want me to make more videos like this, please drop a like and a comment so I know that this is what you want. Okay, so this section, the guitars and the vibe of it is kind of inspired by Infected Mushrooms. We've got 2 layers of guitars. And I actually had a guitarist friend of mine play original guitars on it. But you're mainly hearing my main guitars in the mix anyways. And you have a bunch of synth feels that sound like this. We've got some big percussion. This, I believe, I consolidated into audio from Damage 2 by Heaviosity, I think. It's a Contact library. And that gives us a new section. Underneath all of this, I'm preparing to go into the second build-up, so I'm fading in that synth ARP that was going left to right in the first build-up, if you remember. So we're kind of preparing towards the end for bringing everything down once again. We have our sub bass back, our synth ARP back. We have that Nexus ARP coming back in here. We've got our drones back. We have this ear candy here. Moving forward, the piano comes back here. I desperately wanted my second drop for this track to be in triplet. And I remember thinking, how am I going to achieve that in a Astrix kind of way? And if you go and listen to Bungee Jump by Astrix and Captain Hook, I believe, let me tell you exactly what second it is. So from 1 minute 10 seconds until 1 minute 23 seconds, you will hear this main pluck sound that they use for their melody get some reverb and delay. All of a sudden, they cut it off, both reverb and delay, and it hits into the drop. That's the kind of thing that I decided to do with my piano. I chopped one of the chords after the last chord, and I applied that same trick, similar trick at least, plus the vocals. This is something cool that you can try in your production, so I'm going to try to break down as best as I can. You can see there is a bunch of automations here.
But don't hurry anything. Don't worry about the future. Just be entirely content to be aware of what is.
So the piano chord is just a chop from that same structure. However, I sent it to a unique track, track 16. Here we have the EQ doesn't matter in the scenario. We've got a triplet growth speed rhythm added to the piano itself. Then that same piano is sent to this delay. You can see track 113 down here is the delay. On that track, we've got our delay, of course, on 1/64th triplet. We've got the feedback knob that's being automated. We've got the dry and wet knob that's being automated. And I think I actually automated the time knob itself as well. Let me just make sure. Echo Boy feedback, Echo Boy time. After that, in the chain, we have a pitch shifter on -1 octave, 12 semitones. And I'm also automating that in to make it thicker. We have a devil lock after that, which I'm automating the mix knob from the mixer itself for the ending section that gets distorted. And we have another growth speed on the delay channel itself with the same settings. So all of that gives us on top of that, we have a few wise words from Alan Watts.
But don't hurry anything. Don't worry about the future. Just be entirely content to be aware of what is.
Worrying about the future and being able to live in the moments and everything that he says are things that I actually struggle with in my day-to-day life. So in a way, in that moment, in my frame of mind, I was trying to satisfy my own emotions and needs by putting this, cementing this in a track so that every time I listen to it, I get reminded that this is what really matters in life. Has it helped? Not as much as I wanted to. Don't want to lie to you, but it helps sometimes a little bit. Anyways, so we prepared ourselves for a triplet section. Now we needed a triplet bass line. Everything else, the kick and the snare, kind of remains the same. Our triplet bass line, this time I actually, I believe I took this from a sample pack. I pitched it, yes I have, and I timed it to fit my project because it just had everything I wanted. fit my melody as well. So we have a drum fill and our melody coming back in. We actually have this synth fading in under it for the next section. And that little bit of Triplet actually satisfied my needs for Triplet. So we're moving back into straight, but this time not in our original way of bouncy bass line. We go into the straight traditional Psytrance bass line. And this wasn't actually hard to design. I consolidated it. I did it in Serum. So I copied the melody from the first drop into the sound of the second drop, and it gave me this. So that's being played for another 8 bars until we bring back the main melody sound. And we have a couple playful ear candy moments like this here. So this sound, you can see, has automation for some beat crushing and panning and stuff. And it just gives us that little bit of a pullback into the drop again. We have some breath, reverse breath down here. This Roland 303 bass line is also new in the track, is coming in slowly again. Try to prepare us for a little breakdown, rest in this section, into the guitar section again with minor differences. So the difference between the first guitar part and the second guitar part is just in the ending notes. Before it was being repeated, and now it just changes and goes down and comes back up. So this was the original, and this is the difference. And the bass line is back to the bouncy in this section. Our synth ARP is fading in again, preparing us for the outro. An outro goes back to just the drums and bass plus this dream ARP from the intro. And everything now is being filtered out gently. Well, everything should have been filtered out. I turned something off, I believe, somewhere. Anyway, if you heard the song fully at the start, you know that it just gets filtered out and nothing special at the end. But that was the production mindset behind this track called Avernus. This was the second Psytrance track I've ever made. And I was still figuring out the arrangements, the techniques, because I was listening to a lot of Astrix tracks, and I knew that I can do it. I just needed some practice, and this was my second practice. The production of the track didn't take as long as the mixing side of things. I believe I spent 48 hours, and not like solid 48 hours of production without stop. I'm talking literal 48 hours for the entire production side of things. I waited a few days for the guitar parts to come in. In those few days, I was doing the mixing side of things, trying to, again, learn the techniques for mixing this kind of tracks, and of course, mastering it, which I also done within the project. For my second Psytrance track, it turned out very competitive in my own honest opinion. And everybody else who heard it around me believed that it doesn't have much less than stuff that you hear in Psytrance festivals. I'm not comparing it to the top of the line Astrix Deep Jungle Walk type tracks. I'm comparing it to the Psytrance that you hear these days, which doesn't have much melody going on anyways. If you're interested in an even more melodic Psytrance style, my other video where I broke down my other Psytrance track that has plenty of melodies, has 3 drops, and you will see a different kind of approach to the same genre. And I will link it up top and at the end of the video so you can watch that if you're interested. Breaking down the mixing and mastering side of things will take its own dedicated video, but you can see my mastering chain by name. And my drum bus has the filter, which doesn't matter in this case, but we've got some saturation, we've got clipping, the same for my bass bus. For my melodic bus, we have some soothe. We've got track spacer for, I believe, making some space for the vocals when it comes in. Vocals have some soothe because it was an old recording of Alan Watts' speech and downloaded through YouTube converters. So I had to clean up a little bit. And that's pretty much it for the bussing and mastering side of things. Of course, there's so much going on individual tracks, but not as much as you imagine. I want to emphasize that. If you keep your eyes on the left-hand side of things, I'm just gonna scroll through the tracks and you can see how much plugins I've used for each track. Not many. So much of my production style comes down to picking the right sounds and changing samples left, right and center until I find something that has what I want most of the time. And then I will add or take away some things that I don't like about it. But most of the tracks you can see that not much is going on anyway. Thank you so much for watching this all the way through. I hope you took something away from it and you learned something new today. I'll see you in the next one.